The Bill Clark Show, presented by Dr. Pepper. And now, Coach Bill Clark.
Welcome into the Coach Bill Clark Show, presented by Buffalo Rock, Dr. Pepper. We got the whole gang back together. Molly Robinson, Landrum Roberts, I'm Pat, along with Coach Bill Clark. How was your Super Bowl Sunday? Everything go well?
It did, yeah. It did.
How was San Francisco? I saw that you were in one of the boxes at the Super Bowl, you and your family.
I wasn't this time. I had been there before at the championship games. I wasn't at this game, but I was at my house watching on my TV.
I thought I saw you at the halftime show.
I did
you were
too.
standing next to Ronald Acuna.
I thought you were going to say Bad Bunny, but
Well,
just in general.
Yeah, just in general.
Yes.
I thought I saw you. It's one of those pieces of
that's what it
grass.
was.
That was me dancing.
Was it?
Was there a good dancer in there? I missed it. I was watching a different halftime show.
Okay, I got you.
Where are you?
Yeah, a little more country.
How about this? I didn't even know there was an option until after the Super Bowl.
That's sad.
Well,
I wouldn't even tell
I was
that.
brushing up on my college Spanish.
Is this when you were skiing?
Huh? Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't get the memo that Bob was playing.
Yeah, he just cut off all social media.
No, he did send me a couple of videos.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Came back in one piece.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, I was
That's good
mainly
to know.
thinking of the first video.
Oh, the first video. Yeah, we had a little bit of a protest. I
Yeah,
had
there
to
was a
navigate my way through some cyclists.
Yeah, there was a parade.
Really?
Yeah, it was. But guess what? I'm really good at Frogger. I got through there, baby.
There you go. Good.
Yeah.
First half. I mean,
Yeah.
you're a coach.
Mm-hmm.
That was
It
bad.
was bad.
I mean, when we're sitting there talking about the potential of the place kicker to be the MVP.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 9-0. I mean, what did you see? What was happening?
Once again, you know what I always say? Okay, we're saying they're bad, but this other side was good. But that wasn't good. I mean, it just wasn't. Even though I thought there was some really good defense, I don't know. It just was not a good first half. I guess I'm now a fan for sure. But, I mean, I appreciate the defense, and I thought they obviously defensively, if you just want to go back and study just different looks, there was a lot more pressure. They both sides brought a lot more pressure than probably normal. I think obviously we see how Seattle, I mean, if we just said building your team, and I think Mike Vrabel, same thing, build your team with defense, you got to have a quarterback. You know like what you say, we got to have a quarterback, let's get a running back, let's go get a go-to receiver.
Yeah.
But let's go build it with defense, special teams, and then you keep getting good players at those other positions. But you've seen both teams, I think, with that same mindset, Seattle just better.
Well, you watch that game and it reemphasizes how good those guys are at that level. Because I'm looking at a left tackle, Will Campbell from LSU, who great kid, loved him during the draft when he got selected. He's one of those high draft picks. He got destroyed on the left side. Just kind of put it in perspective how good they are, even with a team that made the Super Bowl.
Well, they
and
also
Will Campbell
destroyed the left guard.
They did.
You know, so it wasn't, and I'm kind of like, wait a second, it wasn't just him. And they've made some other people look bad all year. But that's been a glaring weakness for them. You know, now, I don't understand not having, I mean, you can take an edge guy and help with an edge guy. Now, sometimes, you know, they'll get knocked and you end up messing the tackle up. But it seems like when they would go help him, the guard got destroyed. But, you know, we were talking last night about moving the launch point. You know, so what do we do in those situations? And you're talking about Josh McDaniels. What is all he done? You know, so you're questioning. But somewhere in there you say, we got to sprint out. I think they tried boots. We got to screen them. These are the things you do, especially early, to people when you say the front is better. You know, they're better than we are. Every way I can move the launch point, everywhere. Now, they tried to run the ball, you know, and they've run the ball well all year. But I think you're talking about a great defense. And in those games as a coach, you know, man, these points are going to be precious because I know they're not going to give up a lot, I don't think. We've got to do a great job. You know, and they kept it early, but it was not the first half just from a watching standpoint was tough.
What did you think about Drake May? Just overall, I know he was pressure. We were talking about the offensive line. He was out of rhythm, and that was smart for Seattle to be able to do that. But a lot of times they were doing it by just rushing four guys.
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't bringing outside pressure.
Yeah, and I think that's what you want. You know, you mix it up, but the whole ability to rush with the front. I mean, we could give a whole talk on that creates the ability to stay in coverage. And when he was so uncomfortable. And so remember this was, and you know, things that used to didn't hear about a lot, I think more people talking about, but our number one thing was to affect the quarterback, not to sack him, but to affect him.
Even if you just get to him and just remind him that
Constantly.
you're there and kind of hit him a little bit.
That's it. That's why you'll see these pro guys who know what they're doing. They put their hand on him every chance they can. They want him to know. They just want to speed him up. And that's how many throws did he have where he was just sped up? Just speed him up. And that's what you're trying to do. That's why I always talk about what do we do to change it up? What do we do? And you have to get a little bit different and sound. To me, looking at it from the outside, of course, listening to coach from San Francisco, I mean, he called it. And that guy, we know what a good offensive coach he is. And hear what he said there at the end. I mean, we didn't score. So this was a phenomenal defense. Of course, New England stayed in it. They had some plays there at the end. Obviously, the pick at the end killed them, but Seattle was a better team.
You got a Georgia grad that is now a Super Bowl winning head coach,
Yep.
38 years old. Did you ever aspire to coach in the National Football League? And what does it take? I know these guys are obviously intelligent. You take the likes of whether it's a Sean McVay, what we just saw in Seattle, is that a combination of right place, right time?
Yep.
Kind of take us into that.
Yeah, so our first answer, me, everything for us growing up was college football. I mean, it was Chris Schenkel and, just very few games, and it was just the epitome. Of course, the money started getting better. And I kind of went down the path of high school first, but my dream was to do all I could do there and then have the next chance, which I got. Just loved all the things with the college game, all the things that you teach kids, all the things that make them better people, but still getting to play at the highest level. The pros for most of us was, I just don't, it's just business. You got players calling the head coach by his first name. I think we've seen some of that has probably digressed a little bit. I think it had gotten where it was all business. It was nowhere near what the college game was from an excitement standpoint. The pro game has improved. What happened? These pro coaches started taking scheme from the colleges. They've gotten more excited. You remember how everybody was in two-back offense. Even when we had people run the gun, Dallas would run the gun. Nobody would run the gun.
Kind of credit Chip Kelly for that, right?
Yeah, just like what we gave the high school game, the running quarterback who could still throw. We gave them that. I've told you all that. I mean, I can tell you when that happened. We did that as high school coaches. We said, hey, you can get a quarterback that can run and still throw it. And they're like, oh, I guess you can. Just like the college offenses have now gone to the pros. How much more exciting, how much more fun. But what happened, our game has imploded, I hate to say, with all the insanity. Now you're looking at this game going, wait a second, wow, there's actual rules. Because the hours, which I always said with hours were insane in the season and terrible in the out of season, are now insane 24/7.
I liked hearing what Vrabel kind of taking that college approach with his team and going in and telling everybody in the building, the first meeting with the team, you're going to respect every single individual in this building. Not something you hear every day in the NFL.
Well, I think these pro guys finally started thinking, wait a second, we got the rules here. We got the contracts. Let's hold them accountable. Let's love them. Vrabel does just what I did. Every time a guy's down, he goes out on the field. Every time. I'm like, wait a second, that's my son out there. I want to go out there and see. Now if he's not hopping up, it's like, okay, I'm glad I went out here versus, but guys down. But things like that, he's shaking hands as they come in, and then you can be tough on them, and there's an accountability, but those guys have a job. What happens with that thing when it's over, though, you get a break, because it's insane, but at least there's a break. At least you're not hunting people up, still worrying about academics and all that stuff. When it was your calling, when it was to make a difference in lives, all the things that we've always had, it was well worth it.
That's the teacher in you.
Yeah, that's how I was brought up. Yeah. The guy that comes back and says, man, you changed my life. And you see his family and you see his kids. Like I said, everything that I wanted to be that I feel has been pulled from us as coaches. And I hate to say that because, I still love the game, but I think now we've seen a change. Now, leadership in the NFL, I'm not a big fan of, but what they're doing, and I think just the game itself with the structure that we're starting to lose, I think it's becoming more appealing.
One thing that's always appealing, and that's Smart Bank, Coach. Great sponsor of the Bill Clark Show.
Yeah, just hats off to our guys at Smart Bank, and I think it goes back to how they treat the customers. We talk a lot about customer care with all our sponsors, but got to hear again yesterday about just how well the overall bank is doing, specifically our branch here in Birmingham, and it goes back to the people at the branch that are serving the people coming in.
Coach, we're just talking about Mike Vrabel, and before we exit the Super Bowl conversation, I wanted to revisit Vrabel because, I've always been impressed by him when he was with the Titans, and since he's been with the Patriots, I guess I've paid more attention. But seeing that loss the other night, he was outside the locker room, and he greeted every single player before they went into the locker room.
Yeah.
I thought that said a lot about him and the atmosphere and the environment, the culture that he's trying to build at New England.
Yeah, here's the thing. Coaches see people that are coaches that are genuine. That's a genuine move. And, you can see when it's fake and it's put on, and I'm good for whatever if that's you. That's him because he knows what that's like, and I don't always buy into the player coach, but he's different. He was this good player that was tough and hard-nosed. And, when you hear the story, about him starting with Bill Cowher, who is that tough and team and together and all the things that we believe in. Then he gets to go play for Belichick, who had built it the same way. He's had good teachers. And I think seeing probably the things he said, maybe he even learned, and I don't know if you got to hear him talk about what he learned this offseason when he was down. Did you get to hear that interview where
I did?
I guess it was Cleveland, and he's down where the players are, and man, that interaction with the players, and and you say, well, what was your role compared to his? Like for me, what did I do? Well, it was based on who I had, and I had a different age of kid. My job, because I had really tried to go out and hire a bunch of good people who were really nice. Sometimes, which forced me to be the bad guy more, be dad, so to speak. But the players knowing that you really care about them. Mine was really trying to make sure everybody knew they were going to be treated the same as much as possible, that there was truth and consistency. And, when I told them something, that was the way it was, and I held everybody to a high standard. But then you still come back, and every chance you can love on them, the human side of it. And I think that's what you see out of him. And I think that's why they've taken a horrible record team. What are you bringing, 30 guys?
Yeah.
So you got to give him.
Biggest improvement in the history of the National Football League.
I had not heard that. That's when you start talking about unbelievable coaching jobs. There you go. And then you see those things. Just what you're talking about is why they're playing, because they're playing for him and each other in a league where it's a business.
Big story this week was Charles Bediako. He loses his case.
Yep.
He plays 5 games for Alabama. The Tide goes 3-2. And so now he has no other options. He will not be allowed to play as Alabama loses that case. And now we got Trinidad Chambliss over in Mississippi. He's going for an additional year of eligibility. You've got Joey Aguilar, the quarterback for the Tennessee Volunteers. He is trying to do the same thing that Trinidad is doing. It's a mess right now.
Yeah.
And the NCAA, they patted themselves on the back because they got the win in Tuscaloosa. That case a little bit different than the Chambliss and the Aguilar. But overall, Coach, you've been on the rules committee for not only, obviously on the field rules, but also trying to develop NCAA policy and rules. What can be done, if anything, to try to get this craziness out of the game?
Well, there's 2 things. So I was on I can't remember what first year, one of my early, not my first year at Prattville, but maybe 2002, 2003, till I left after the 2007 season. I was on the Central Board. And it was, of course, Central Board's not been a great topic in Alabama, right now. Not lately. But what I learned there, I was the coach, and we had all these administrators. And I would, whether it was a rule that if we kicked a coach out of a game, he was going to be suspended the next week by an official, and I'm like, what are we talking about? We're not doing that. But they really considered that and things like that were good for me. But I learned a lot about precedent. Because if we do it for this one, we got to do it for that one. And so, which is, what laws
rule of law, right?
Real law.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't really understand it but if we do it for this school, we got to do it for that school, and so on. Now, I am kids. You know, it's still, I mean, being a coach, being a parent, it's been what's good for the kid here. So we try to do the things that's best for the kid. And that's what I always said. We got to have an understanding. So the difference in one who went played in the pros. And I think that's that you understand. I'm going to tell you 1,000 times that if you leave and go to this league, G League, you're done.
You're finished. Right.
And there's never been any ambiguity about that. So that, I don't feel sorry for that. You know, I mean, yeah, it seems like a good kid and, you know, whatever. But that rule's been there forever. Now, there is gray area, and I've lived it with a kid on did he medically sit out? They investigate it, they look at it, and then there's a ruling based on that. I mean, we've had that rule, but we've talked about you got to have rules.
Now, let me go back to okay, so like I'm not trying to get into the whole Trinidad case.
Yeah.
But the crux of the case is that he claims that Ferris State was going to give him a medical red shirt. Hence the reason why he did not play a whole year.
Right.
And so he says that he has played 3 years of competition where he is granted a fourth year.
Yep.
Because per NCAA rules, you've got 4 years. We got 5 years to play 4 years.
That's right.
So he claims that he's got another year. Even at a Division II like Ferris State, when you were at Jacksonville State, being a 1AA or FCS,
Yep.
what they call it now, there's got to be paperwork, right? I mean, if there's no gray area between you and a player if you're medically redshirting somebody, right? Or if you just want to give that player the red shirt because he didn't get the playing time, take us there with that communication between you and that player and who else is involved outside of your office to make sure that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed.
Yeah, so this goes, and we dealt with this a lot, this goes to your training staff. This goes to the medical doctor that you have. So we've had some things that I really felt like were legitimate, but we didn't have the documentation. And if you don't have the documentation showing he had this illness, something should be there. There should be something there. And and this is what happens, if we cannot prove it, you're out. Because, there is a burden of proof that says, show me, and that's why you have appeals, show me where you were out.
Right.
Show me where you went to the doctor and our trainer looked at you, because they're supposed to be taking notes, and there's doctor's notes, there's all that stuff. And we've had to go back and find that and have gotten a lot of guys handled that way where we found the documentation. You were, where our and this goes to our trainers calling their trainer, our doc's calling, is calling their doctor, those type of things to get the records, but the burden of proof is on the person trying to extend in that institution. But there are people, we're all used to that, of calling each other to get these records.
Okay. So if I'm a player and it's not anything medical.
Yep.
But I just have not got on the playing field. Like I'm down deep on the depth chart. But you see something in me that, give him another year, nutrition, workout, terminology, just, letting his body grow.
Yep.
And you want to give me another opportunity, but it's not a medical red shirt at that particular time. Is that when compliance gets involved?
Yeah. If you're trying to you're just not talking about a regular red shirt, because you got a chance for a regular red shirt.
Right.
And we get to make that call.
Right.
Okay. So now you got 5. Trying to get another year where you say, oh, we still want to try and have access to that red shirt.
Right.
Let's see if we can get him a medical. There's got to be documentation that's, so
the best route is the medical front if you are looking to get that additional year.
Well, and my point on that is somebody's going to have to lie for you if it's not medical.
Right.
And you start talking about, that's the trainer's good name and the doctor's good name to say, let's say you weren't sick. I'm not going to sit here and say you were when you weren't.
I guess what I was trying to get at is at Ferris State, they were painting the picture. And I know, listen, they're Division II, but they have won like 4 national championships in the last 5 years, including this previous year. We're not talking about a fly-by-night organization.
It's a good program.
Right. So I guess I'm just having a hard time comprehending that if the head coach at Ferris State told Trinidad Chambliss, hey, we're gonna medically redshirt you this year, and then he doesn't play the entire year, but then there's no documentation, so to speak. then it's
and the rules have been. That's right. If we cannot provide the documentation, which means somebody's got to vouch for you, and for us, it was more than the coach. It was from the NCAA. It's got to come from your medical folks,
right?
And these are those things, and I can remember those years where it's like we're cracking down on this now. We're going to be looking hard at these medicals, And what happened? COVID threw off everything.
That extra COVID year,
it threw off everything. And, I think what happened, the rules got looser. We could look at our country. What happened, to our country after that with rules and money being taken and whatever. But I know the history of that is there had to be documentation, and it had to come from them. It wasn't really a coach. It was coming from a medical. Now, you might pick up the phone and call the coach and go, yeah, we medical, and there should be records of it.
Yeah.
But that's going to have to come from the medical folks. Everything I've ever seen.
It will be interesting to see how that case officially is ruled. One thing we don't have to worry about, if you're looking for a building supply, someone to help you out, whether you're a company and you're looking for materials, or you're a guy like me that just want to do a big project around the house, Webb Concrete and Building Supplies.
Yeah, and I keep coming back. You got to have the product, but the people that deliver it. It's real close to me. My son works, for Phil and those guys in Pell City, but flooring, all the, obviously we knew Webb Concrete from the day, but now we have all the building supplies and just great folks at 9 different locations.
Coach, the University of Alabama, as we're taping this, they're expected to name Richard Owens as the next tight ends coach at the University of Alabama. He's been the offensive line coach for Louisville, and it's interesting because he at one time was the offensive coordinator for the UAB Blazers here in Birmingham.
Yes. So when I got the job in 2014, obviously, Coach McGee had left.
Mm-hmm. He had gone to Louisville.
Yeah, he had left and gone to Louisville, and tell the story of the first team meeting. We were looking up at the stars. Not purposely
in the dental building.
In the dental building. Yeah. So Coach Owens was one of the guys, and there was other guys that were on the old staff. I had pretty much just brought almost my whole group from Jacksonville State in there. A few other exceptions like Bryant Vinson, but Richard was a guy that was the old staff telling us, these are the guys we're recruiting. These are the guys we got now, and that's what you do. So just a little bit of history on what that looks like. You come into a place, and a lot of times you have the whole staff planned out, but invariably you've got a spot. You may have one spot, you may have 2, you may have more, and you're going to look at guys that were previous on the staff. I loved it because I'm going to interview these guys. And what happens, it happened to Jacksonville State. There was guys I loved there, but I had my whole group but I was able to keep one guy, Jimmy Ogle. Same thing happened here where I had a spot and I'm watching Richard Owens work. How good he is with the kids, how he interacts with them. Obviously, he was the OC and had not been the OC long, but and they'd had some good, decent offenses, but I really liked Richard Owens. I liked his attention to detail. Obviously, you got a guy that played tight end at the highest level. So he started out with us as the tight end coach. The return, he'd gone to South Alabama. I ended up getting him back with me. I make him the O-line coach, does a great job, and is with me all the way till 21. And then he leaves as I'm leaving there in the summer. But good person, good with the players, very attention to detail oriented. Alabama got him a really good one.
Yeah, so he will be the tight ends coach. So he's converting from offensive line coach at Louisville to where he's now going to be tight end. And most Alabama fans that called into the show after the news broke that he potentially was going to be hired, they were excited because you've got another coach on staff that has been O-line coach, and that was the area of concern for most Alabama fans this last year because they couldn't run the ball, whether it was the running backs issue or the offensive line issue. But now you've got a brand new offensive line coach, but now you're bringing in a guy that's coming off being an offensive line coach. So they're hoping a lot of different eyes will be able to try to correct some things that's wrong.
Well, that's what you want. You want this tight end coach to be able to – first, he's got to understand what the front looks like, blocking, and because you want a toughness with your tight ends. It's amazing how many guys don't really understand what that looks like out of the tight ends. When they're engaged into the core, into the box, they're O-linemen.
Yeah.
And so that toughness, that mentality. Now, then you turn it and go to let's go catch the ball. But it's like receivers. You earn the right to catch the ball by how you block. And specifically, if you're a tight end, you've got to be able to block. You're going to be in the core, whether we're motion you in, all those different things. So here's a guy, but he understands all the O-line schemes. Mm-hmm. That was a grip for us to be able to move Richard to O-line, which, that was new. He might have done that for Coach Vincent. Maybe his last year, Bryant may have moved him to O-line, so he might have had some familiarity with it. But it's a great move for us. We had done really well, and Richard just kept that going. But I think Alabama fans are going to be happy because you got a tough guy, played the position highest level, but is an O-line coach too, and that should really improve their run blocking.
And not to mention the fact that one thing we have seen in the 2 years. I know you had Sheridan in year one. Last year it was Grubb. The tight ends are a very important facet to what Kalen DeBoer wants to do. When you look at what happened with this year with Cuevas, the development of him, I mean, he was the guy on offense, especially receiving.
Well, when you talk about what all a tight end does, why don't you give one guy that position? Because he's an O-lineman. He's a receiver. He's got a motion. He's got to do all kind of things. And when you get the good ones, which people have finally started figuring out how to use tight ends. It's like when we started all this wild stuff and they can hide and insert and, and they can run.
Yeah.
And so I tell you, that's what's been really fun to watch in the NFL is how these tight ends are used. There's just so much you can do with them and guys that really understand that. And there's a guy that played the position and played it at a high level. Along with his O-line, I think you're going to see a significant improvement in their play just on Richard Owens.
It's come a long way since Novacek with the Cowboys.
Yeah, it was. Well, it was funny when you would see those guys and you'd be like, oh, wow. Now, of course, Mike Ditka, I guess we forget. He was pretty dang good. But just the way they use them now, it's really cool.
Well, it's cool the way that I see the way that you use your vehicle every day as you come rolling in here, always late. Just kidding.
Yes, we're on time. We're on time, which is early.
Yes,
because that's my own time. So
very much so. But
I don't always catch you guys working. Molly's always working.
No, she does. She
works most of the time.
Yes, all the time. But
all the time.
Speaking of your vehicle, a great sponsor here.
Yes,
at the Bill Clark Show.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to brag on our sponsors. Obviously, Donahue and Chevrolet. That's a great marriage. So, I love my Tahoe. My daughter has a Tahoe as well, but I think all the Chevy products, and they've always got great deals going at Donahue.
All right, and remaining a few moments, Coach. Always love the update each week. CoachSafely.org. I continue to see on social media just PSA after PSA, just some, and I'm talking about some famous people that you guys at CoachSafely.org is just doing a great job trying to get the message out.
Well, and I think we're fixing to come back in the state of Alabama. I think there's been a little bit of a lull. And I think it goes back. You can have a great product, but you don't get the word out. We're starting to do that. But we're going to come back and hit Alabama hard with this new content. People are going to love it. I mean, it's
this app.
That's going to be the key thing. You're going to go into the website, you're going to get this app, and then you got it. And there's going to be all kind of downloadable materials. If you want things, you can carry it out on the ball field as we add video and things like that. So give me some time on that. But we're moving to other states, Alabama first, but Georgia, Louisiana. We got a call with the governor of Indiana coming up.
Oh.
Dr. Andrews is getting recognized March 9th by Governor Landry in Louisiana. Obviously, Georgia, we've just inked a deal with Georgia Park and Rec.
Nice.
We're a preferred partner. We got some of the football teams starting to get in. It's really it's fun. And then we've got a really good partnership with Andrews. Mm-hmm. Andrews, the institution, as they go to other states and we're going together. So I think there's a lot of great synergy. So a lot of good stuff to come. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of obviously community baseball leagues are getting underway, getting practices, and it's important that make sure that coaches, because in the state of Alabama, it's a state law that you have to take this course.
Yeah, once again, brag on places just like Trussville. Y'all were one of the first, and you were right there with it, Pat. So this is about our kids. Once again, so they can play, so we can get them out there and just get them out there safety. As I always tell my coaches, let's coach them like they're your own.
Yeah, absolutely. Not to mention the fact you want the coaches educated to know exactly what they're seeing and how to react when something unfortunate happens.
Well, they're not the doctor, but they're the surrogate. You don't know what could happen. I want to be prepared, and if we can give them something sitting right there on their phone, there's going to be so much AEDs and heat illness.
Right.
And there's so many great things that are going to be there. Course takes less than an hour to take.
Yep. Information, coachsafely.org. All right, that's going to wrap it up for us. Another edition of the Bill Clark Show, always presented by Jimmy Lee and the great people at Buffalo Rock Dr. Pepper. We'll see you next week on the Bill Clark Show.
This has been the Bill Clark Show, presented by Dr. Pepper.